Okay, good evening. I will call to order the meeting of the Fillmore City Council today. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll have Mayor Pro Tem Mendez lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, and we'll have a roll call.
Councilmember Brogy? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Mendez?
Here.
Mayor Villaseñor?
Here.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
Here.
Councilmember Garnica?
Okay, great. Next is approval of the agenda. Do you have any changes, or can I get a motion?
I will make a motion to approve.
Okay, I have a first.
Second.
Second from Mayor Pro Tem Mendez. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next are our presentations, and our first presentation this evening is our Fair Housing Proclamation. So, as you know, as mayor, I'm able to do one or more proclamations every month. And in April, it is Fair Housing Month. And so let me see here, the National Association, well, actually the Ventura County Association of Realtors brought this forward, and so I'd like to read this proclamation and then bring it to Ms. Cindy Diaz-Talley, who is a local realtor and also a representative of the Ventura County Association of Realtors to have this proclamation for this month. Whereas the Fair Housing Act, enacted on April 11, 1968, enshrined into federal law the goal of eliminating racial segregation and ending housing discrimination in the United States. And whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, sex, familial status, national origin, and disability, and commits recipients of federal funding to affirmatively further fair housing in their communities. And whereas, because of the Ventura County Coastal Association of Realtors and the Real Estate Fraud Advisory Team, REFAT, are committed to highlighting the Fair Housing Act by continuing to address discrimination in our community, by supporting programs that will educate the public about the right to equal housing opportunities, and by continuing partnership efforts with other organizations to help assure everyone of their rights to fair housing. And whereas the city of Fillmore is committed to the mission and intent of Congress to provide fair and equal housing opportunities, and whereas our social fabric, our economy, our health and environment are strengthened in diverse, inclusive communities, and whereas more than 50 years after the passage of the Fair Housing Act, discrimination persists, and many communities based on protected classes remain segregated and locked out of equal opportunities in lending institutions and housing. And whereas acts of housing discrimination and barriers to equal housing opportunity are contradictory to a common sense of decency and fairness. And whereas the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics commits all realtors to providing equal professional services without discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, familial status, handicap, sexual orientation, gender identity, or natural origin. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Cristina Villaseñor, Mayor of the City of Fillmore, and on behalf of the Fillmore City Council, do hereby proclaim April 2025 as Fair Housing Month in the City of Fillmore, and urge residents to wholeheartedly recognize the celebration and the continued importance of the Fair Housing Act in our local community and across the nation. Okay, thank you, Ms. Cindy. Come on up.
Thank you all. I see Martin getting up.
Yes, okay. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I think I'd rather
Oh,
go to-
okay. Thank
If you
you.
want to say anything, I know you have public comment, but if you'd like to say anything on this.
Sure.
go for it.
So I will say to all of you that a proclamation is a very simple and kind way to acknowledge that we see you, we hear you, and we appreciate your hard work. And at the end of the day, I see fair housing at the local, at the state, and the national level, and what can happen when we look away from what is fair and equitable for everyone. So while it is a heavy lift at times, and I sometimes have to use my mama indoor voice to get my message across to legislators, at the end of the day, it is the most worthy cause there is in real estate to make sure that everyone is treated fairly and equitably, no matter individual, familial status, or otherwise. So thank you all for recognizing that, in fact, the organization that I represent works very hard to make sure that that happens on a daily basis, every day of every week of every year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Cindy. Okay, great. Our next presentation is on our sewer enterprise update. We'll have Deborah.
Let me pull this up. Okay, are we able to see? Okay, great. Well, good evening, council members. Mayor Villasenor and Deborah Cavaletto. Here tonight, we're just going to do a little quick sewer enterprise review. We've had a couple of questions over the past, I think, several months regarding why do we have the type of treatment plant we have? What are my rates going to be for the next few years? And of course, with the sewer collapse and the change in FEMA methodology, what about our funding that we applied for? So let's get started. So we have two sewer enterprise funds. One is going to be ending in May 1st, 2030, and the other will be ending in May 1st, 2047. So how did we come to have these bonds? Well, the Los Angeles Regional Water Control Board imposed more stringent limitations on the wastewater discharge by our existing treatment plant. So they said, this is what you need, please comply. Actually, you must comply. So this would be, again, give the deadline of September of 2009. Now, we also actually have in, I think it was 2023, when you approved the rates in April, we actually put a request was given to us to put a chart or a little timeline of how this all transpired. And it is available on our website. But of course, I wanted to make sure that we kind of go over it again so that the audience who is watching, that they can see the detail of what has occurred. Then in May of 2007, again, we're required to also plan for additional population growth over the next 20 years. That was, of course, with the general plan and the build out the business park. So therefore, we had realized that the city had to now have bonds because of the large scale of the project. And so bonds were issued. When they were issued in June of May 2007. So in June, we then were a competitive bid for design operating the facility. So $57,490,000 of the revenue bonds were issued for the purpose of financing this. So this was the reason why, again, we had to comply. Also looking at the growth in future growth, therefore, that we had to have such of a large scale plant. So in August of 2009, it was completed, and in September, it began operations. Then in June of 2017, the bonds were 10 years old. Therefore, we then be able to have the opportunity to refund. Why do you refund? If there's a way out there that you can get cheaper interest in this process. Sometimes you look at it and say, yes, you can. Other times you can't. Or you can look and say, let's split it. Where can we cut off and maybe pay up front, retire some of them, or therefore split the two, as which we did. So in 2017, we issued $34,435,000 in the series of 2017 wastewater. Now, what does that mean? We issued, but we also retired a portion of it. So now this is why you have two bonds. So in May 1st, 2030, the original bond will be paid off. And then in 2047, the remaining principal payments for the 2017 will be paid off as well. Now, that being said, as you know, in 2017, we had this new bond. again, we can then the process within the 10-year, look at it again and see whether or not that we may or may not do the refunding. So, any questions for that question?
But, so just kind of to translate that last part into my my language, basically what we did is we refinanced at a lower interest rate, right? Mm-hmm. And that was not the entire portion, but just a portion of the debt.
Yes, so for a certain portion, and there were some that actually we retired fully, and we actually saved approximately a net of approximately, they did the net present value of approximately $6 million just from that alone.
I do have a question, Deborah. Thank you. So with the debt service having those two different dates, right, of 2030 and then 2047, and maybe you'll get to this, and it's okay if you'll answer. But could residents see any kind of significant change come 2030 in terms of their rate? Or is it more?
Well, what has occurred actually
you'll
is.
talk about it.
Oh, that's a great question, actually.
Okay.
I'm always open to many questions as you can.
Okay.
So what will happen is right now, for the first bond that we have, we pay the principal and interest. And so on the next page there, we have the balance that is $7,555,000. Again, this is unaudited. We're still going through our 2024 ACFR, but this is a balance remaining. And as you see, in 2017, we then refinanced $34,435,000. Right now, how this is done is we pay the principal and interest on the 2007, but we're only paying the interest for 2017. But once we retire, and the first payment in May 2031, we'll begin to pay the principal. Because if you look at it, the principal, and I apologize, I didn't have it broken out, the payments will be much, much higher, and this gave us a little ability to be able to pay it. So there is going to be like, oh, great, I got this one in. Now you're like, oh, but I still now have the $34 million to pay. So it kind of replaces itself. Yes.
Deborah, so that you may address this later, so if my question is going to be answered later, just let me know. But my question has to do with the size of the plant. What was the, I guess, the projected population that it could handle, and including the business park? Is that later in the presentation?
I understand it's about approximately 24,000,
Okay.
24,000.
And right now, we're approximately 17 and
Yes,
change.
17,000, yes. Now, again, this is the treatment plant only. It's not necessarily saying that we have the infrastructure within the area at this time to compensate for the 24,000.
And at the time, when did they project that we would see that population?
I don't have that one, but I can get that for you.
Okay,
Yeah, but
thank you.
Great question. So, sure. And also, too, if I'm missing something, Joe or anyone else, Kevin, you'll let me know. I'm glad they're here. So as you see, that was the B bond. So right now we have about $41,990,000 remaining for principal. Now, of course, this is not including our interest payments as well, but I wanted to make sure that you know this is the debt outstanding. So the next question that has always come up is, well, are my sewer rates going to be increasing? Well, in 2023, when this was approved, we did a 5-year approval of a flat rate that would be, for the sewer, it would be $103,036. So this is going to be from 2023 to 2027. Same as for the non-residential, which will be the $42.64, and that's for all flows, volumetric flows. And the same thing for the flow rate, which would be $13.07 per 100 cubic feet. Now, what happened, what changed from the methodology in 23 to now is that now before they had a volumetric rate in the base rate, now we don't have that anymore to comply with Prop 218 to ensure that well. Now, of course, the fund is always monitored to ensure that we have the rate's ability to cover our operation and maintenance and also try to contribute to capital improvements when we can. The next evaluation is estimated to begin in 2027 for another rate study.
Would it be fair to say that one of the reasons why people noticed the change was that previously our water meters were kind of old and probably not accurate, and we went to a more accurate up-to-date, like modern technology? Didn't we do that recently?
We did have the AMI meters, I think it was approximately 4,300 that we installed. And we do the billing, and from the customer questions, across the customer service, we do get the questions a lot, why has the bill changed? There has been many meters that have been older, and therefore were not, I said, registering maybe as properly. Now, not all were, but there was a majority that we saw in that. And so that's where we get a question is why my bill is higher. Now, the sewer did not change, but for the water, basically. There would also be, you may have a little bit more change in the non-residential because now they're not having the rate in there. But I believe we did in September 2023 is when we did the implementation of the new rate, so it's been about 2 years. But to your point, yes, and that has a lot of questions. That question came up again regarding why is my water higher, as well as why am I paying for the sewer plant? So this is a perfect, when this came in, and you had mentioned a question as well about the sewer plant as well, and the debt. I'm glad that everyone came in and that we were able to do this evening. So thank you. And let me, okay. So the next one, oops, all questions? No, not yet, but we're getting there. So now I'm talking about the sewer collapse, and this is the reimbursement update. So as you know, we had cost was submitted for and process, and this also tells the process stage for the emergency operations and sewer repair. So we had a category B, which is emergency measures. That is when, while we're trying to get the sewer repaired, we had to also make sure that that we had everything going and running, because you could not have, you have so many other customers that were on one line. So as you can see, we submitted almost $8.5 million for a category B for protective measures. And that is right now what they call in the pending in the final FEMA review. And then the second one is the category F. And that category F was the actual repair of the manhole and repairing any road and sidewalks. And that was almost $2.4 million. So what this means is there's $10.9 million that we roughly submitted. And therefore, if approved, we would get 75% from FEMA, then goes to Cal OES, which will pay additional 75% on the remaining 25%, and then the remaining be on our scale. Now, this is also too, once this gets obligated, we then will be told you now have what they call a category Z. That would be for our administrative costs. So that would be something that we would then have to be processing and give them as well. And we also did a hazard mitigation proposal. That was roughly of $60,000, and this was for a project for the future to put what was called an epoxy coating to the affected areas to try to keep it a barrier between the water and to the material. And we did talk with FEMA recently, and again, administrative holds apparently are on obligations, but they are saying that they are starting to see some projects that are starting to be more getting to the advanced level. So, all right, so any questions?
Okay, let's get some questions. Yes, Kate.
Yeah, would you mind going back to the slide that referenced the 2030 payoff and the 2047 payoff that was early on?
Is it this?
Uh,
Or the one before?
no, I think it's prior to that, wasn't it? Yeah, this one here. So can you provide, or am I missing it somewhere, provide specifically the dollar amounts on what's going to be paid off in 2030 versus what's going to be paid off in 2047?
Yes, so as you see on the next slide,
Okay.
on this slide here would tell the final, this is for the payment, so we'll be paying off $7 million, and we're paying it off in installments, of course, but we'll be paying from 2024, from 25 on, we have an additional $7.5 million that that would be paid off yearly. Then comes to the 2017, we'll then start paying off the beginning to pay off that principal, and then that will be ending in
Gotcha.
2047.
Okay.
I didn't have the additional, like the each year what the payment was.
So once the dollar amount in 2030 is paid off, is there any anticipation of a rate change when we've got that paid off, and now we're only paying on the 34,000?
We would have to be doing an analysis on that
Okay.
to see where we
It's
are.
an
Again, also
unknown?
look, because we have to also look at operations and maintenance costs if anything increased. we're hoping that it'll be nice that we can possibly have done even in, looking at, was it 2027, looking at possibly if we can do a refunding, that would help. And then we can look at either, most likely it'll probably be more maybe just keeping it flat rather than doing an increase.
Right.
So as you see, you can see from the prior, the ones we have here, this is like for a 5-year rate. And so if things do go well, we are collecting our money. We do receive the FEMA funding. We can, I mean, the goal is always we have to always make sure that we are charging for service, for the correct service amount. We're not charging anything to make money. We're supposed to be, as by Prop 218, that's where it.
Okay. And,
Yes.
I'm sure the rest of the council feels the same way, but I would really appreciate having a copy of the entire presentation.
Okay,
This is
great.
the topic that we are asked about most frequently from constituents and business owners, and it's helpful to have this information. So thank
Yes,
you.
and also too, we are updating, also we have that graph that's on our finance website that is a little bit more of mine is more detailed, but it has the details, but it kind of gives you a more timeline for more visual effective to follow.
Great.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yes, John?
Go ahead.
Just so I can make sure I have a clear understanding based on what Carrie said. So basically, from now until 2030, we're paying on the 7.55 million interest and principal,
Correct.
and on the 41 million, only interest.
The 34 million.
I'm sorry, 34 million, only interest. So those are the two. And then once 2030 hits, then the 34 million, we're going to be paying both interest and principal on, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure I understood that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Then, yeah, Deborah, thank you so much for your presentation. It's always good. I'm so glad that we brought this back up here for new council members and for us, a refresher to continue to, make sure that we have our heads around this. Carrie's right, something that we're always asked about. I was wondering if you could speak to new development, including sort of the Bridges area, which is almost fully developed, when we have Creekside that'll be happening. And I know that there's been residents, or there's been talk that, okay, we're going to have more homes, more people who are connected to the sewer, help spread the pain out a little bit more, but it doesn't necessarily really work that way at all. So that's what I've been told because of infrastructure connections. Could you just kind of speak to that?
Well, I might be overstepping in the, I lost my project.
Or maybe I should. That's what I've heard.
But there is
Yeah,
something,
okay.
because also too, you are getting new development in, but also too, we do have sewer lines that are aging, and therefore there may be money also go associated to be able to accommodate the new sewer. Of course, they'll be building, usually with the works development, they'll be building their own sewer connections, but of course there are also flow and connections that are coming from the existing one as well. But we also, again, make sure that we do review that to ensure that if there is a savings, we would want to make sure everybody does have that opportunity to receive that.
Right. And then no further question, and if it's outside the scope of this presentation, it's fine. But and that is on receiving, hopefully, fingers crossed soon, our FEMA reimbursement for the collapsed sewer line. I know there was phase 2 of that. So there was the rehabbing of the C Street sewer line, but also extending along D Street, sort of for a future sewer line. And so I was just wondering if that's on hold, sort of until we sort of replenish our funds in that area.
For understand the project, yes, that it will be, because right now that did take a big chunk of our dollars. So therefore, right now we're supposed to be focusing on operation and maintenance, any repair that we can.
Mm-hmm.
But some large scales that we have to really sit down and project for the future on that.
Perfect.
But great question, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other further questions? Okay, all right, well, thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
All right, and
I picked up something else.
our next presentation is regarding our street vendors here in the city. So come on up, Kevin.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. If you notice in the last 5 or 6 years throughout all of California, you find street vendors everywhere. It's not just the city of Fillmore, it is everywhere. And the reason, and I'll get into it in a bit, because street vendors have been decriminalized by the state of California, so it's not a crime to be a street vendor. And a street vendor believes they've been licensed to go anywhere and everywhere, which is not true. The law is the Senate Assembly Bill 946 that was approved by the governor, and then the behavior of the street vendor, or the environmental health department for the street vendor, that too has been a little bit decriminalized. It makes it a little bit easier to get a permit once you seek a permit. So those two bills were passed, and the vendors believe they can just operate anywhere they want. That's not true. The bills say cities have the ability to regulate them. You allow for them and you regulate them. And that's what we did at the city of Fillmore. Here's a little example. There's Assembly Bill 946 and then Senate Bill 972. In reaction, the city created an ordinance to regulate the street vendor. We pretty much said, you're not going to go around the parks. The reason is because they have their own funding sources that they have for Little League and so forth like that. And you're not allowed downtown. So those are two prohibited areas you're not permitted to be. If you're to locate anywhere else, you need a business license and a health permit. And there's some criteria involved in that. When you meet that criteria, you can be a street vendor. Not a single street vendor in the city of Fillmore complies with any of that. There's also the state law, the vehicle code that CHP can help us enforce, is that if you're along Highway 126 and you're a street vendor in the right-of-way, the California Highway Patrol can issue citations there. We do have some of that.
Quick question.
Sure.
So you mentioned that street vending is not allowed within the downtown area. Can you tell me roughly the boundaries of what's considered legally the downtown area?
On Central Avenue, beginning from Highway 126 to Sespe, and then a little bit on each side of Central Avenue on Main Street. Right.
So, for example, at Roan Mills, someone could set up across from Roan Mills by the park, the old
No,
Masonic
that's
Temple
also
Park.
downtown. So I should extend northward. I think it's to Kensington.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted clarification.
Yep.
Thank you.
Not a problem. There are basically two types of vendors. One's our traditional one we've seen for 30 to 40 years that we call push carts, and they roam around the streets. They're not stationary. Nobody's ever really complained about those, not really, and they've been around forever, and there have been very few of them. The other type of street vendor is what we call stationary outdoor kitchens. That is new to us, and that's a full kitchen with propane, and sometimes they have outdoor dining that they create and outdoor lighting. And they typically start at 5:30 in the evening and they go to 11 o'clock at night. And they operate on the weekends. So that's when code enforcement is not here. They use generators. Yes, there's a question.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the push
filings does not mean that sexual harassment has
license and take their picture, fill out that
I haven't seen them in ages. They're supposed to. We should do enforcement on them, but I haven't seen that done in a very long time.
I have seen,
Oh, have you?
because staff has asked about the ID cards would usually get generated by my office. So we do have solicitors that come in, renew their permitting process, and then we issue a yearly ID card.
So some of these have the generators, as I mentioned, and they also have tables and chairs for their customers along the right-of-way. They have what we call environmental footprint. They're larger. They're much, much larger. And these are the vendors that generate all of our complaints. The type of complaints we get, if we start with on the left-hand side, public health, is that food does not appear to be prepared in a sanitary condition. There's no restrooms, no areas to wash your hands. When they leave remnants of food behind, and what comes with that are rats, raccoons, and possums. And if you live next door to that, your house is now infiltrated with the vermin. There is illegal dumping we're seeing there. They dump oil and grease and fats down our storm drains. That's very illegal. And that ruins a storm drain. It also plugs up the storm drains. And they also dump it on the ground. And then where they're located, they've damaged the city's landscaping and irrigation, which it'll have to be replaced. In terms of safeties, with a propane, we just had the recent fires. Some of the complaints we were receiving is that the open flames with the grassland nearby, there's a safety issue with fire. There's concern along Highway 126 with congestion. If you're along the highway, you don't have to pull off safely into a driveway, into a parking lot, unless you just instead park on the shoulder. And that there's unsafe parking practices and that type of safety. There's also, for quality of life, it's a little loud with the noise of the generator. I'm being told by some of the residents, at first they enjoyed smelling tacos in the evening, but after about 6 months of that, they were getting a little tired of that odor. The behavior of the vendor is actually pretty good. And they have no problem with the behavior of the vendor, but some of their customers are a bit unruly. They're loud, they're argumentative, they get into fights, and sometimes there could be unpermitted alcohol sold from these vendors. So we have a balancing act. It's a bit challenging. We need to enforce the regulations that we have. And we have to do it in a way where we don't get confrontation from the customer. I'm the one that goes to the vendors. I go there in the evening, and I go there with the police department. The police department, it serves as the peace officer, just to keep peace. And as I told you before, the vendor's actually pleasant. I ask for their ID, and I get it. And they've been very nice and kind to me. But again, the customers, they're not happy to have police presence there or myself asking a bunch of questions. We need to continue to educate the vendor themselves, and I give them our ordinance and our criteria. They don't follow it, but I tell them, and I try to find out who the owner is. So the operator is not the owner. So please know that the person serving the food, in some cases, they don't even know who the owner is. This takes considerable amount of staff time, and I'll get into one in a minute about how long it really takes. I get help from the police department and Public Works, and that's appreciative. So we have had successes. If you're familiar with Highway 126 and Trestle Way, there's 2.5 acres there. We had at one time 5 food vendors at one time every weekend for a year. And one homeowner was persistent with the complaints. Every single week I would get a call from him, and I'd go there frequently. And we've learned other methods of enforcement. The city of Fillmore owns that piece of property, and we installed a sign there that says no trespassing, and magically they never showed up again. But it took us a year to figure that part out, for me to figure out, because I kept going there and trying to enforce the code. But with the help of the police department, they said, hey, why don't you install no trespassing signs, and it solved it right there and then. But that took about a year. We removed the street vendor on Mountain View. He was on Mountain View and Main Street, and on A Street and 3rd Street. And then was a recent one on a vacant gas station along Highway 126. I forgot the name of that gas station. It's owned by 7-Eleven, but it was named something else by Angel's Donuts. with the help of the police department, that was removed. And they're trying to figure out a way to permanently remove any street vendor on that piece of property and used boats and used cars and those type of things. They're working with our department to try to figure that out. So there has been some successes, but every time I hit one, 5 more comes in its place. So we've decided to work with other departments. That's at the state level, county level, and on the local level with other jurisdictions. I've been going through some training as well as some of the other staff. And we're sharing information from one city to another, from one code enforcement department to another. So if Santa Paula decided to be severe in their regulations, well, those street vendors would come to Fillmore. So we're trying to share information to prevent that from happening, even between Santa Barbara and Ventura County. The Sheriff's Department's been helpful through the entire process, and we will engage a little more with California Highway Patrol. And for the last year and a half, we've been working with Ventura County Health Department. So we'll continue to share information with them. It just takes an incredible amount of time. So what can a homeowner do, or what can a citizen of Fillmore do? Because they get pretty frustrated. So this is what I ask that they do. Observe what's there, and then 2, take a picture of it without interfering with the customer or the vendor. And that's your documentation that you send to me. I keep all documentations, and we use that for enforcement. And submit a formal complaint. Some people don't like formal complaints because their name goes on it. I've never shared that name with anybody. I can't receive an anonymous complaint, but I need one with a name and a telephone number. So those people who have called and complained to me, we have frequent telephone calls. They give me a lot of intelligence of what's happening out there. But I don't tell everybody who it is. And it's very helpful with the information that they give me. So in the future, we'll continue with enforcement and working on collaborating with the other agencies. We'll improve that. We've only just recently learned to begin that process. We thought we were alone in this. And then we'll continue to educate vendors. There's a vendor who moved from an unsafe condition, moved off the highway, still on private property, but it's much safer. It's on the east end of town, and all complaints toward that vendor stopped. And he's not around any residents or anything. They do need to follow permits, and we'll follow up with him. But in terms of safety, that element has been resolved. So we appreciate that. That's my presentation. But whatever is done, it's going to take time. This will have to happen in the evenings because they set up at 5:30. It's best that we get to them the moment they begin to set up. An hour after they set up, the gases are already up, the food's already hot. It's really difficult to remove. We can get into some pretty severe enforcement if we have to, but it hasn't been requested yet, and it hasn't been needed. We've found other means to resolve some of these issues, but it will take a little bit of time. I'll take any questions you may have.
All right. Thank you, Kevin, for your presentation. You have any questions? Yes, Carrie.
Yeah, Kevin, that was enlightening, and this is one of those issues we keep hearing more and more about from constituents again. But I have a couple questions. On the formal complaints, what is the reason for the policy on not submitting a name and a phone number with that?
I need to contact them and talk with them about what they see. When they submit the complaint, there's only a small line in there, and they can't fill out all the complaints or all the information on the complaint. And I do need to get a hold of them.
Okay, so simply providing the location isn't sufficient to do that?
I'm sorry?
Providing the location of the vendor?
No, that's not going to be enough. I need to know who's making the complaint, where they live, and just a point of contact.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to let them know also I received it. So a lot of people make a complaint and they think it doesn't go anywhere. It goes right into the round file, right?
That's
But I
true.
want to let them know I've received your
Right.
complaint. I'm actually doing something.
Great.
I'm not telling them everything I'm doing every single day, but I want to let them know I've received your complaint
Yeah. that
and we're
makes sense.
addressing it.
Yeah, I get that.
But if I could add, I mean, legally, we would accept the complaints that are anonymous, but it's just better and more helpful to staff to eradicate the situation to the extent possible if there's a name and the
Right.
contact information. So if someone's afraid of submitting a code enforcement claim with the name, they should still do it.
Okay. Yeah, but I get Kevin's point too, though, that,
Yeah.
you know,
It's more
to
helpful.
be able to reach out again and say, you know, I'm hearing what you're saying. And then you indicated, and I've heard this before, that it's not the people that are actually serving and doing the cooking, there's a hierarchy involved here. So can you describe for us what type of action is being taken at all to go up the chain a little bit? It's almost like, you know, talking about drug deals where you've got bosses that are, you know.
I don't go up the chain.
I know you don't.
Yeah, I
but
don't,
what,
but so when every single complaint I receive, I quickly call the Ventura County Health Department and I give them
Okay.
every information that I have. And I don't know if they send things up to the district attorney. I don't know if they go up the level of chain. If we witness something, like selling drugs or alcohol, well, then the city of Fillmore will probably talk with the district attorney.
Yeah, that would-
I haven't witnessed anything like that.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, it seems like it's a futile attempt if we're not getting those that are at the top of this whole issue, that are responsible for, you know, setting up these.
Right.
You know, and otherwise you're playing whack-a-mole all the time. I'm sure
Right.
that's how you feel.
Yeah. The district attorney knows about these things, so it's not going to be
Yeah.
new information to him. So he may be working at another level that I'm not.
Yeah, okay. And then, that's all for now, Kevin. Thank you very much, though.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, John.
Kevin, I just want to say thank you for that presentation as well. Very thorough. Learned a ton about what we're doing and how we're trying to mitigate that. One question that I think I know the answer to, but do you anticipate at some point having like an online form on the city website where a customer can fill out the form that, you know, has their name, has their phone number, and that way you can not necessarily have to call someone, but just submit it electronically?
It's there now. It's on the city's website. If you go under the building department or code enforcement, you see code enforcement complaint form.
Okay.
And people email that to me all the time.
We can probably work though on making that form fillable, so I'll work with your staff and that way it could just be submitted from the website rather than someone having to print it and then fill it out and then scan it and email it to
I
you.
thought it was fillable, maybe.
But
Well,
they
we
still
can-
have
we
to
can get
save
that
it.
done.
So I'll
Okay.
work with your staff so that we can
Sure.
have it through Cognito and it be more automated.
Okay, all right.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Albert.
Thank you, Kevin, and I've been following this as well very closely and what other cities are doing. And I know like other cities, they come down with a heavy hand and they'll, after several attempts, they confiscate their equipment, but that can get costly because then we have to pay for the storage of that equipment. And what I'm hearing is that doesn't help the problem. They just come back because it's not these guys, it's other people above them, and they just come back with new equipment the next week and it's just like.
No, that's exactly it. But we do have a place to store it without paying anything. I follow that avenue. We haven't confiscated anything yet, but we can. And we can create a method to do that, and I know how to do that. But it's not really necessary when you visit a vendor. You tell them the dangers of it, and you make it 3 or 4 times. By the way, I issue citations also, and then they ultimately get a hint. And you can do other kinds of regulatory means before you lay down the hammer, because then we confiscate all the food, and we have to figure out what to do with the food too.
All right, thank you. Luis? Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm going to share this with folks and say, okay, start watching the council meeting at this at this minute to hear the presentation you've
Please
done.
do. I just found out a location tonight from some of the council members before the meeting. I didn't even know, so we'll be visiting them. I don't see all of them, so I really do appreciate the complaints. And I'll follow up on every single one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I had another follow-up question, and I think Eddie got to mention this to me. So we know that putting up a trespassing sign has worked because you're able to access our sheriffs with that code. And I know some have several have set up on private property. And we know who the property owners are. I mean, they have their signs saying, "Hey, our property's actually for sale or for lease." Has that worked, contacting the property owners to maybe sign some sort of...
Yeah, they don't know that they have a vendor on their property. So if
How do
you're
we let
an
them
owner
know?
in Bakersfield or in Houston, and not until I send them a photograph, that the person who made the complaint, they send me a photograph of them, and I send that to the property owner, and then we start coordinating with them.
Okay, guys. So again, reinforcing the importance of photos to be able, again, on that arm, to let the property owners know they can work with the city, and then thus we can hopefully use more of the code of trespassing. And then, thank you, Kevin, for, like you're saying, you have to. It's almost like a swing shift that needs to happen in the late afternoon, early evening to try and get them right away. So I'm glad that our city, you and others are willing to do this, but is that also that willingness or that coming from Ventura County Environmental Health? Do you know if they're in any way, adjusting their schedule, or at least a team from Environmental Health, since it is a county-wide problem.
Right. Well, the Ventura County Health Department is the one that's educating myself and Brian McCarthy, right? So they're spending their time on that, and they have one individual who specializes in street vendors, and I'm in contact with him every week. So they have provided that resource. They have difficulty coming here with a number of people to shut down vendors after 5:30. We tried that once, and information leaked out to that vendor that we were coming there for a surprise, and they weren't there that day. And then we came the next day, and they knew that day too. So everybody likes the street. Everyone likes to eat their food and stuff like that. So it's hard to keep those kinds of things quiet. Anyway, the Ventura County Health Department, we appreciate their work.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Glad you guys are working in concert.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Just a follow-up comment and question. One thing that we've not talked about is how unfair this is to the people that are doing this correctly. The people that have, the brick and mortar restaurants and following all the rules, doing what they're supposed to do. And it's so detrimental to their business. I mean, I think of maybe the number of tacos that are sold from, one of the vendors versus, and what Vallarta's not selling. However you want to look at it, but it's a completely unfair situation. And detrimental to our existing businesses. And I'm thinking, in situations, let's use a disabled vehicle parked on a street, and it's been there forever, and our code enforcement's knocked on the door, told them whatever, written them a notice, a warning, whatever, and it stays there. I mean, how often do they do that before it gets towed? So that's what I'm thinking, is that I'd like to see it elevated, to the next level. Okay, here, they're out there, here's your warning, don't come back, because if you come back, you're going to lose your equipment. I don't know any other way to get the message across, because I think we're too soft-handed on it. I mean, only because I feel like it's something that's somewhat new to Fillmore in the last couple of years. So I just think it's time to take it to the next level.
Okay. Please note, there is one street vendor that is legally permitted. He's in a trailer by Margaret's Cucina. He has all the proper permits. So please don't complain about him.
He's a food truck, right?
Yes.
Okay, he's a food truck.
And so you're right about those businesses. They pay insurance, they pay rent, they pay workers' compensation, they pay business license taxes, they pay all their taxes, all those things that they do that the street vendor is not paying.
And they're sitting back saying, why am I doing it this way? Why am I spending so much money on my business when I could be out on a street corner? So that just...
With a permit, they can.
Right. And then that's that message too, is that this could be potential if, one, you get permission to be on a certain property, get your health permit, get your business permit.
Yep.
It's, yeah.
You
But
can
again,
do
but not doing it, I think you're right, Carrie, that there needs to be, increased enforcement.
Facilities and
There are places like that in town that will provide those facilities.
Right.
And you can do it.
Okay. Yeah. And I appreciate this update, and it would be great too to, see if there's anything. I'm sure it's going to continue, but if we have changes either for the better or for the worse, I think we would really like to know, because I think we got to talk about taking some further action at the next level.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that moves us now to public comments, and we have one general public comment speaker, and that is Cindy Diaz-Talley. Come on up.
I swear I'm trying to get back to my own driveway, folks. So I wanted to just simply bring something to your attention this evening to consider regarding the Creekside project. When I was here 2 weeks ago, I heard the presentations and the RENA numbers, et cetera. But one of the things, as I shared 2 weeks ago, is insurability issues. And that project does have market rate, affordable, and low-income farm worker housing planned for it. The oxymoron in my mind right now is the insurability issues with the mapping that is going on, and that project being in a newly mapped high fire hazard severity zone, and the costs of that insurance. In my real estate mind, that math is not mathing when you talk about affordable housing, but the cost of insurance on that home, and how does that balance out? So I don't know if there's an opportunity to pivot at all with that project, or what can be done, but for a family, even the market rate housing folks are probably going to be shocked when they see what that insurance might cost. And the projections at this particular time is over the next many years, due to the fire losses in our state, that we'll see consistent increases in policies somewhere between 25 and 35%. As a homeowner here in town, and I'm an original owner in Riverwalk, I've owned my home almost 25 years. I have never had one claim on my policy, and this year my policy went up 32%. So, with that new project, wonderful. I'm so happy to see it happening, but the cost to maintain that property may be untenable, and that brings me back to my fair housing hat. And how do you make those dollars make sense? So I simply wanted to come and bring that to your attention, because I've been chewing on that bone for 2 weeks since I left here last meeting, and I've sucked all the flavor out of it trying to figure out what the solution could be. But I really want you all to be aware, because that conversation is going to come to pass. I guarantee it. So thank you very much for hearing me out. Thank you for the proclamation. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.
was not
Appreciate
aware
it.
of that. That never occurred to me.
Yeah, that did not occur to me either. So, yeah, it's important to bring up. We have, again, just as Creekside has 4 single affordable homes and 16 ADUs.
Would it be okay if I asked a question about the Creekside insurability, since it was brought up? What do you think?
I mean, that's not something within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council, so it's not a Brown Act issue, but I
Right.
don't know that staff would be able to answer that.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Kevin whether or not there were any, I know we talked about it at the last meeting, we talked about insurability and the design for fire resistance in the city code. That was brought up, and I was just going to ask whether or not any of that type of any of that type of design element was incorporated or put on that development.
I don't know. We just literally received the plans about 2 hours ago. So we need to plan check it. So I'm sure there is, but I don't know. We'll do plan check. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that leads us now to our next agenda item, which is City Council reports, recommendations, and comments. All right. Have any updates?
I'd like to give a shout out to the police department. I was able to attend their egg hunt, or more like an Easter hunt. So when I first showed up, I got there like right when they opened up. They had all these different great stations, and in each station they had stamps to encourage the kids to touch base with all the different departments. They had everything from search and rescue. They had the horses out there. They had SWAT out there. They had a ton of equipment. It was in the parking lot of Two Rivers, so it looks kind of like it's open and it's spread out because we have a pretty big space out there. But there was a lot of stuff going on. My son's only 2, so he was a little bit like, I don't know if I want to do all of this. So we ended up going to the park, at the playground, and we stood there. We stayed there for a while, and as we were there, I saw the explorers putting out eggs in the grass and getting ready for an egg hunt. And so I thought it was a great opportunity for the community to go and participate, for kids to see all the cool equipment. They had like this, I don't know, it's like an off-road vehicle. I thought it looked pretty cool. It looked like a real life Hot Wheels. So there was a lot of good stuff there. These are kinds of opportunities that I think create lifetime memories for children. When I remember growing up and going to the Lemonway substation to see Santa Claus and get toys, and the fire department has that now at the station here, the fire department station. So I thought that was a great opportunity for everybody. It's good to see the explorers out there getting a bunch of experience. They come from all sorts of backgrounds. Some of them I remember from my the after-school program, ACES, at the middle school when I used to run that program. So it was so cool to see them there and getting all that exposure. So I thought that was a great event, and I look forward to the Cones with Cops event. I think that's going to be good too with One Step Alavez. So, and another thing I wanted to mention, which we just talked about, when we were talking about 5C with the street vendors. I'm not going to talk about the street vendor situation. I just wanted to give a shout out to my colleagues here. I pressed my microphone button probably 6 times, and I kept hearing the things I wanted to say or the questions I had be asked and spoken about constantly, and that shows a good amount of synchronicity, and it also shows the efforts from the community for reaching out to each and every one of us about these issues, and us being curious about what is happening and how it's developing. And so I just wanted to mention that as an update. I think that's pretty cool. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Luis. Well said. Okay. What else? Yes, Albert.
I just wanted to report that I did on March 27th attend the Housing, Community, and Economic Development Policy Committee in Burbank, California, and we talked about AB 306 and AB 87. AB 306 deals with building regulations and state building standards, and AB 87 is housing development and density bonuses. So it was pretty good. We set some goals, and I'm happy to share them with you guys. I have the presentations, so if anybody wants them, I'll email them to you. So just feel free to reach out to me.
All right, thank you. Yes, Carrie.
I've drawn a blank on what we are calling this committee that is working with the downtown development. It's you. Okay, so what are we calling the committee?
Committee, Economic Development Ad Hoc Committee.
Why can I not remember that? Okay, anyway, so I would appreciate hearing an update. And this is just a recommendation, and if I can get a couple of my colleagues here to agree to this, bring it back on an agenda, so or even a presentation, just so.
I already have a staff report for this 22nd. It's completed.
I'm sorry?
I already have a staff report for April 22nd to
Oh,
share
good.
the plan with everyone, so it's completed.
You always do that. But one of the things that I'm thinking about in that context is, and a question that I am having is, I'm wondering whether or not, considering the empty storefronts that are there, if the committee would consider looking at evaluating the ordinance that we have that requires 1/3 of retail in each storefront. I know that that's problematic for some, and they end up putting things there that they normally wouldn't sell, I think. And my understanding is that the purpose in doing that, requiring the 1/3 of retail in the front, is so that we don't end up with a whole lot of businesses downtown. We want it more of an attractive, lack of a better description, a touristy type situation. But I think that with so many empty storefronts there now, I'm wondering if we should reevaluate that. So I would like to see that brought back, if anyone is in agreement with me on that one.
Yeah, all right. I agree, Carrie. I think it's worth to take a look at that. Okay.
Again, good place to evaluate it.
All right. Okay, yes. Oh, anything else? You're good. Okay. We have support for that. And John?
So my report should be pretty short tonight. Actually today, I participated in the Fillmore High School, I guess they're called mock interviews. So students volunteer to be interviewed, to go through the interview process as if they were going to be hired for a job. And the Rotary group, the Rotary International Local Rotarians, volunteered to, several of us went to do these interviews. I interviewed 4 Fillmore High School, I guess they were all seniors, 2 young ladies and 2 young men. And I have to say, I was very favorably impressed. They did a very good job. They came in, looked me square in the eye, shook my hand, and introduced themselves. So obviously the high school is doing a good job of coaching them, because there was no hesitation on their part. They were all well spoken. And I have to say, it was a great experience for me seeing, these are not students that are necessarily going to college. These are also, a lot of them are going to go to trade schools. So it was very good. Like one young man, he was saying that he wanted to be an electrician, and I was very, very pleased to hear that. And he was very well spoken, a member of the football team, member of the baseball team, and it was very nice. It was a great experience, and I would recommend, if the high school does that again, I would recommend any of the council members to go ahead and do that, because it's just great interacting with the youth. So that, and I also, Carrie, we did talk a little bit about the Economic Development Committee. There was some action there. We had a meeting about a month ago, I believe. And we didn't report on that, so that was a miss on our part.
All right, thank you. Okay, my 1A update, excuse me, that I have is earlier this, actually, put it back to last week, I went with our city manager, Erika, and Fire Chief Corolla. We were invited to visit the Cienega Springs restoration site, which is basically right on the outskirts of town, just beyond on our east end. You use the Fish Hatchery Road to enter it. And this is an area that previously was farmland, cropland, watercress, and I think other crops at one point in time. They were cleared out. And so now it has been a investment of $8 million from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to restore this to the to basically the original natural habitat, which is a riparian woodland. And so over the course of several years, I want to say at least 2 years, maybe a little bit more than that, the stewards of this project have been the Santa Clara River Conservancy. So we were there with their CEO and 2 of their board members, and we were able to see all the amazing work that's been done, and literally from volunteers, both from locally but also from around the county, one clearing out Arundo, which again, as we've talked about Arundo before, it's rampant here in our Santa Clara River Valley, riverbed, and and planting by hand our, native plant species. And it's just amazing. They were able to show us before and after, and it's quite an investment right outside of our community. It's really something. It's not yet open to the public. They're anticipating, at least a year, but no more than maybe 2 or 3. I don't want to misquote on that. But they really want to start creating a buzz and talking to leaders and talking to groups like Rotary and maybe Lions Club and connecting more with our local students here at the high school and middle school to be volunteers and to come and tour and see what's taking place, because this is such a amazing boon that we have right here, right literally just on our outskirts. There's going to be a walking trail, a biking trail. It's going to lead right down to the river. So it's just amazing. It's an ecological preserve right here in Fillmore. So anyway, it was wonderful to tour. Let's try to, again, share this information, and maybe as leaders we could, all take a tour of it and start talking to folks and creating a buzz and seeing if we can get more volunteers. Particularly, I think they want more volunteers from Fillmore. They've actually have volunteers who come from Ventura and even Santa Barbara County to work on this. But, this is right in our backyard. So just want to share that. Thank you. All right. Okay, we'll move along now. We are now on item number 8, consent calendar. Can I get a motion on that?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Okay, I have a first, a second.
I'll second.
Okay, first and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries on consent. And our first item of new business is 9A, discussion of whether to adopt a Mills Act property tax program within the city of Fillmore. Okay, thank you.
Good night, council members, mayor, and constituents. This is my item. And also thank you to Tiffany Israel and Kevin McSweeney for also helping me draft a staff report. So if there's additional questions, they're here also to answer them. So what is the Mills Act? It's a state program that offers property tax reduction to owners of historic buildings. The focus is to have preservation, so it encourages rehabilitation of qualified historic properties, and it also allows the cities to enter into contracts directly with qualified property owners. The key requirements are the contract length is for 10 years, and it does have a clause to automatically renew. There are historic designations, so the property must be officially recognized as a historic property. Then it also requires, as part of the contract agreement, that every 5 years there has to be inspections. Those are outside of the property and inside of the property to ensure that there is compliance. And there also needs to be an official recording, so the contracts are filed with the county records. So currently in Ventura County, I wanted to also bring up to your attention that the city of Ventura integrated their program into their municipal code. Oxnard and Simi Valley, they utilize the county cultural heritage services, and Fillmore in 1989 delegated the cultural heritage board from the county to designate these properties as historic. The pros of adopting the Mills Act is that it preserves heritage, so it maintains historic character of Fillmore. It also provides a financial relief or a tax saving for qualifying property owners. It encourages investment in older areas, so it could produce a downtown revitalization. And the property values typically for historic districts, they see an increase. The cons of adopting the Mills Act would be that would be a direct impact to the city budget, because depending on how many residents take advantage of that would be a reduction in tax revenue, which would then impact the general fund. It also creates an administrative burden to staff requiring the oversight and enforcement of such contracts. It has very strict requirements, so it may discourage some property owners from taking advantage of such program, and only limits certain properties, those that have been qualified as historic. So it limits the eligibility. Okay, sorry, just wanted to make sure I hadn't skipped a slide. The process in Fillmore, so first of all, there has to be a historic designation. So the property must be designated by the county, like we talked about that. There has to be a qualification assessment, so it would follow the county code section 1366 criteria. And then once the property has been designated, then there would have to be a contract process in place. This does align with the general plan. The land use element supports the downtown preservation. It also encourages compatible reuse, and it preserves the character of Fillmore, so the city identity. The fiscal impact and the next steps. Tonight we're seeking your direction, council, to let us know whether you want to proceed with adoption of this or take no action. Just want to remind you of the financial considerations if such program were to be enacted through the city. There could potentially be tax loss depending on participation, which would be impacting the general fund. And then if you do all tonight give me guidance to move forward with this, one of the things that I would be exploring would be contracting with the county, similar to what the city of Oxnard is currently doing. Just because the county already has a process in place, they have staff in place, and exploring what the cost would be for us to move forward in that direction. We don't have the staffing to be able to have the oversight of such program. And that's it. That concludes my presentation, and Tiffany, Kevin, and I are here to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions from council? We do have one public comment. Okay.
I had a question. Do we have currently any idea how many homes would qualify, or any homes currently now?
So the ones
designated historic homes?
The ones that were attached in the staff report,
Okay.
those would be the ones that would be eligible for.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you answered my questions that I had earlier, so about the tax revenue.
Okay, yes, John.
So I just want to make a couple comments.
Sorry, I just want to make sure on the point of order before on commenting, we do have a public comment to consider. Sure. Yeah, I think we should hear a public comment before discussion. Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you, John. All right, so I will call up for this item Ashley Connolly.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Ashley Connolly. I'm a licensed architect and a proud resident of Fillmore. I live and work from my home up on Foothill Drive, and I'm here to strongly support conducting a new cultural heritage survey of Fillmore and adopting a Mills Act program. Fillmore has a rich history tied to agriculture and the railroad. Many of our historic buildings serve as reminders of the hardworking families who built this city. What makes Fillmore unique is the remarkable number of these buildings that still stand. Unlike many cities that have lost much of their historic fabric, Fillmore retains a significant portion of its heritage, offering a rare opportunity to protect and preserve our past. But time is running out. The 1983 Fillmore Heritage Survey, which is in your packet, I believe, was a good first step, but it's now outdated. It defined 292 structures as eligible state historic resources, but many others were overlooked, and some eligible buildings were never designated by City Council. Without an updated survey, we risk losing vital pieces of our heritage. Why should we care about preserving architecture? Architecture is more than just buildings. It's a living memory that connects us to our past and shapes our future. Take, for example, our California bungalows. These homes reflect early 20th century growth of Fillmore, tied to agriculture and the railroad. Preserving them maintains a visual link to our past and tells the story of Fillmore's transformation into a thriving town. Historical preservation offers tangible benefits. According to 24 Reasons Why Historical Preservation is Good for Your Community, which you guys all have a copy of, preservation stimulates the local economy by creating jobs in craftsmanship and skilled trades. Renovating historic buildings often requires carpenters, masons, and artisans who specialize in traditional construction methods, providing sustainable local employment. These artisan jobs tend to stay within the community, unlike the temporary nature of new development jobs. Preservation also contributes to economic growth. For every $1 million invested in historic preservation, an average of $1.6 million in economic activity is generated. Investments lead to revitalized neighborhoods, increased property values, and higher local tax revenues. By preserving Fillmore's historic buildings, we make our city even more desirable to live, work, and visit. Furthermore, preservation is equitable. Doing a citywide cultural heritage survey and enacting a Mills Act
You
program
have about 30 seconds, Ashley.
ensures that homeowners of all income levels can access the benefits of preserving their properties. This makes preservation accessible to everyone, not just wealthier homeowners who have the means to hire a specialized consultant, and helps revitalize helps revitalize older, underinvested neighborhoods. Preservation creates more inclusive communities where everyone benefits from the shared value of cultural heritage. Historic districts attract visitors, create jobs, and support local businesses, fostering pride and connection among residents. To make this happen, Fillmore needs a new cultural heritage survey, a comprehensive citywide survey that ensures no architectural treasures are overlooked. The city could hire an experienced architectural historian or preservation consultant, and there are funding opportunities available through the State Historic Preservation Office and the National Trust for Historic Preservation.
Okay, I'll have to wrap it up. Okay, thank you. Okay, those are all the public comments we have. So, yes, John.
Sure. So, having brought this up, by the way, thank you very much for your comments. It was Ashley, right? Yes, Ashley. Thank you very much for those comments. They fell on my ears very positively, and hopefully on the other council members as well. But my comments have to do with more with, I guess, the process that I believe that we as a council should think about when we're making this decision, because I really gave it a lot of thought, and I thought, you know, what are the things that we need in order to make a good decision about the Mills Act? And so the first question that I said that we should probably answer for ourselves, each individually, is, do we value historical buildings in Fillmore? Okay, if we do, if the answer to that is yes, then clearly that's one check mark in these series of questions, right? Are historical buildings of value to us in Fillmore? And then because the next few questions are going to flow from that. So the next question I said, okay, well, what will it likely cost in lost revenue if we proceed with adopting the Mills Act, right? Because if we know what that is, in other words, if it's going to cost us, I'm going to use hyperbole here, the entire budget of the city, clearly we would not want to do it, even if we're interested in preserving, you know, the architecture of the city. But if it's going to be a minimal cost, then it's something we should probably consider as a city council, right? So that number is important. And it doesn't have to be a perfect number. It just has to be, in my opinion, a ballpark number. And we could probably get those numbers from other cities that have gone through this process. And then, obviously, you know, one of the questions that follows then is, okay, based on our answer to question one, which is, do we value architecture? How much do we value it? That's a value question for us as a city council, right? And then the next question, or the last question, is how much staff time will be required? I think if we understand what exactly that will require, then we can, again, if it goes into, in my opinion, answering the question for us, how do we want to vote on adopting the Mills Act? Because if it's going to be a tremendous distraction for the staff, then obviously it's something we need to really seriously consider. If it's not, if it's something that maybe we could farm out, then that's another thing to consider. So anyway, so again, my thoughts on this were in an effort to try to help us come to a good decision, not necessarily saying that, trying to push everybody towards what I would like, but just how do we make a good decision for the city of Fillmore, right? And I think answering those three questions, one, do we value architecture? And how much do we value it? Is it's going to cost us a little bit, or is it going to cost us a lot? And then lastly, how much staff time is going to be required? If we have the answers to those three questions, I think we can make a good decision for the betterment of Fillmore. So anyway, so those are my comments. Hopefully you'll consider my thought process there.
Okay.
That was
Thank you.
my first question was,
All right, Albert, go ahead.
going to affect our tax revenues, and I would like to see some kind of number, like how it's going to affect.
Well, and I think honestly, I mean, we're not obviously the first city to go through this, so we should have a record. And if I had to guess, I would imagine that it's probably going to be a trickle of people that are, number one, they have to apply to be a historic building or a historic structure. So that is not like a simple slam dunk process. And so I would imagine it's not going to be like, oh my gosh, now we've got 100 applications tomorrow for, Mills Act contracts. I just don't see that happening. I mean, honestly, I would be surprised if we had 10 in the first year, right? And, so I think that's a great question, Albert, and it's one that I've thought about too, but let's say that it is 10. Okay, so what does that work out to? Mathematically, we can do the calculation. If it's the average, let's just say the average, and this is probably wrong, but the average price of a home is $500,000. If we have 10 homes like that, and it cuts, again, I'm pulling numbers out of the air, it cuts our revenue for those 10 homes in half, right? What's 1% of, $5 million? That's approximately, again, a ballpark number about what it would cost us, right? So these are not numbers that are mysterious. We can probably figure them out, but I think it's important that we have those numbers in front of us before we make a decision.
Yep.
And another reason why
Make sure you have your mic on.
it allows for adaptive reuse, which is huge, especially downtown. We would be able to use those buildings for some. Kevin could probably explain it better than I can, but it's a pretty cool concept. And many cities that have a historic downtown or historic structures use the adaptive reuse, and I love that idea. And I know we talked about it plenty of times during our planning commission days.
Okay.
Just a question for you. So with regard to adaptive reuse, it would be restrictive to only the business district, right? I mean, you couldn't,
No.
what are you talking about?
It's citywide. It would be citywide, right, Kevin?
Sorry.
The best example is the packing house building. It was a packing house turned into then an aircraft storage, but then now it's an active industrial space or craftsmen and stuff like that.
Okay, well, my house on 3rd Street that I used to live in is in this list. So, I mean, if I were to go down that road, if I were still living there, what could I use it for other than a residence?
Well, if its zoning is for residents only, that's all you can use it as.
Right.
Or if you could figure out how to put an ADU in there. But for residents.
Yeah.
But it could apply for non-residents too, the Mills Act.
Okay,
Right.
that's what we're saying, okay.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, Luis.
So, is it true that the last cultural heritage survey was in 1983?
That is correct.
That is before I was born.
Hey, just so you know, Luis, Bev Kernan was one of the people that did this survey. That's my wife.
Nice. That's great. I'm sure it was a great job. So I'm seeing a certain number of properties here that were considered to be historical. But then does the individual who owns that property, they then have to apply to receive that? Okay. And then if a new survey were to be conducted, do we expect that number to change, or it would go up?
It could potentially change, yes.
And so would we do another survey to have a better understanding of the questions proposed by Councilmember Garnica and the other council members, considering the staff time, the tax dollars, and everything that goes into it?
Well, honestly, I don't think it's a requirement that we do another survey. I mean, if we adopt the Mills Act as a city, and again, Tiffany can correct me on this, but my understanding is then any homeowner that believes that they have a historic property could apply for historic designation and then apply for a contract. So we don't have, I mean, it's good to have information, I believe, but it's not, I don't think it's a requirement.
Okay, yes. So, because my thoughts on it are around the probability of residents who live in either those that are already part of the survey or potentially could be part of the Mills Act, and their motivation to really go over quite a number of hurdles. And I don't know if we have that much information on what it takes or even the process to become a property that's on the list of the National Preservation Site.
Not necessarily national, but yes.
Well, I'm sorry, maybe it wasn't national.
There can be I think a county designation as well.
Okay.
So there are like 2 or 3 levels of designation that are
Right.
allowed under the law.
Okay.
But if you are national, that's awesome. You can do that too.
Yes. Okay. So, sorry, I'm just getting my train of thought. So, but there's the application process of that to become on the list if you're not already, part of the current survey, or actually old survey, and then also for these homeowners of understanding that it is they actively over the course of 10 years of this contract need to maintain and do rehab. Am I right about that? Okay, they need to maintain and do rehab. So what I'm leading to is I think it would be a small number, I mean, initially of very motivated people. And again, I agree with you, John, that the idea of how much do we value historical buildings? I think we can all say that we really highly value historical buildings, historical residences in Fillmore. I was just talking earlier with Councilmember Rogie about the importance of that we see that actually coming from constituents and residents really having that value and wanting to preserve our cultural heritage. So that small number of motivated people, also, and then, like you said, on the staff time, and I'm thinking if it is a trickle or maybe just, a handful of people who do this, if we were to adopt the Mills Act and enter, like Erica said, like into a contract with something like the city of Oxnard, for a few people who want to see this through, again, go through the process of making sure they're on that designated list, doing the 10 years, it's almost like, can there be like a retainer, sort of. I don't see the city staff spending a lot of time doing it, especially if there is a contract, but also if that contract isn't doing a lot of work. Maybe Erica could speak to that. I don't know I know we haven't delved in too much deeper, and maybe we just need to, this is just a discussion and it doesn't go anywhere particular from here until we answer some more questions. But a question that I have is maybe to find out, maybe from Oxnard or from another that has a contract, what is it? How much is it costing?
How much of a load on the staff?
How much of a load is it on the city to do it. And again, like you said, if it's that balancing act of us adopting the Mills Act and being able to be there for that motivated homeowner or business owner, I think is really valuable. And in fact, I would put that really high versus, gosh, if there was some really high cost to the city in terms of maintaining that contract.
Right.
So I know I'm not sure if I really spoke my words there, but that's where I'm at right now, and I do feel it just needs some more information. But I think you're right that we, I appreciate you bringing this item forward, and it is an important thing for our city, and we should I think we should keep exploring it. Yes.
Yeah, just a couple of other comments. On the first page of the report, the very last line indicates that it's providing the homeowners with significant property tax reductions. So significant is vague, in my opinion. I don't know, could we come up with a percentage? I mean, what percentage-wise, what is Oxnard, what was their reduction in property tax?
Yeah, Carrie, so I thought about that too. And I think you're right. I think going to another city and saying, hey, what impact did it have on those that did apply for it? How much did they save? I think that's a great idea.
But I think it's percentage.
Yeah, percentage-wise.
Yeah, won't equate.
But they did give some examples in the packet. I think there were 5 examples. They had like a residence. They had a residence and combination residence and a business. They had 5 examples, and from what I could tell, it was about 50% relief.
Okay.
So in other words, the valuation, if it was $500,000 before, for a lot of them it dropped. I'm pulling numbers out of the air, but approximately $250,000 would be the assessed value. So it is pretty significant for the homeowner.
Right.
If they have the property has to qualify, obviously.
Okay. And then the other question I have for council is, how likely do you think it is that if a multitude of people opted to participate in this program and they had to maintain these homes historical, would it then elevate the housing, the value of the neighborhood? So in other words, I can see that as a benefit, where, it's instead of especially in the older part of town, for some of the homes could qualify, but maybe not be, they're old and they haven't been maintained as well.
So Carrie, I have an example. So I drove up Mountain View, on the way home, and there's this really cool house that's right across from where Blaine drops into Mountain View. That was clearly, it used to be a Spanish-style house with a Spanish-style roof, but clearly the owner at some point didn't have the money to keep up the Spanish look, so now it has an asphalt roof on it. It still has the stucco on the outside and some of the arches that you could see, but to me it's just a travesty that, it's sad. I don't blame the homeowner. They're doing the best they can, but a program like this could really help them, because now instead of putting on, taking off all those beautiful tiles and putting on an asphalt roof, maybe by giving them some tax relief, they would be able to
do that.
to keep
Right.
the roof that was on.
And would that be a requirement for?
It'd be in the contract.
Okay,
have
to
to
maintain
maintain
the historical content of the structure?
But that house wouldn't qualify unless they replace the roof first. It has to be historic, and they're typically very expensive to maintain, because anything, even like painting, you have to have it like
Match.
And like the colors of the era, and I mean, anytime you repair it, as our speaker said, you have to have like craftsmen who repair it back to the original standard.
And
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet, Ken, some of these homes that we're talking about were the ones that we used for our motivation for the Bridges homes. We actually used pictures, and each of the planning commissioners drove around town, took pictures of homes on this side of town, on the east end of town, and we compiled that and we presented that to the developer here, and they
Yes,
used
I don't
that.
know if that's a question to me, but confirming, yes, indeed,
Yes,
that's
and-
exactly
and
what
it worked really
happened.
well, because look at the product that has been made.
Okay. Well, I know we've had a good discussion. I'm just, again, looking here, if we all pull up our recommendations and different alternatives, I see there being alternative number 2, which says allow individual property owners to apply for Mills Act contracts without a formal program. And I'm sorry if I missed Erica in the staff report of where we talk a little bit more about that option.
I did not address that. I didn't want to spend time on it. I wanted you to provide me direction so then I can spend the time going into it further. So that's just an alternative. If that's what you want to recommend tonight, I can come back with how that would look like.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I've got a question, hopefully for Tiffany. So if we adopt the Mills Act, does that mean we have to have a program, or can we farm it out like Oxnard did?
You could still farm it out. Cities this size typically don't have the in-house expertise to manage a program like that, so it would often be contracted out to the county or to some kind of consultant.
Okay, thank you. So, I mean, I would be in favor of asking staff to look at what would that cost to the city to farm it out? What does Oxnard pay to have their Mills Act contracts reviewed and, gone over?
Does that go into the take no action at the moment segment?
I think so.
And so that it can be brought
we
back?
could table it until we hear back from staff.
For more information. Okay, so I'm hearing that recommendation then from John for more information to do a little research into cities that have a contract. I'm in agreement with that. I think we do need some more information. That's where I think I was wanting to find out, what's happening in that city, and also I think Simi Valley, which is I think a little bit more sizable to us. So it would be interesting to know.
One question, just for clarification purposes, do you want me to explore the cost of having another survey, or are you? I know Ventura did it in 2019 and it cost $150,000, just to let you know.
I mean, if it's not necessary, I would say
Yeah, I would agree. If it's not necessary, I wouldn't.
Okay.
I mean, it'd be great, not that I'm against that, but I think, I don't think it's necessary at this
Okay.
point. So.
I just wanted clarification.
I think they did a great job on the last one, on the last survey.
Of course my wife did a great job.
And the homes didn't get, they didn't change dramatically. A lot of these homes are far older than the 80s. So I think maybe just how much it would cost to contract an agency to manage this for us, as well as the fiscal impact on the tax dollars that we can potentially lose.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, well said, Luis. I think, do we need a motion on this, or it's just direction? Direction's fine? Okay. I think we all in agreement with the direction?
Yep.
We're giving back to city manager? Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you. All right, thank you for that agenda item. Thank you for that discussion. Okay, well, moving on now to, and thank you, Ashley, for your comments. To item number 9B, City Council discussion on reorganizing the City Council agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. I just need the mouse so that I can change the presentation. Thank you. So the recommendation is for for council to discuss and provide direction needed. So I'm just seeking feedback on proposed agenda changes. If you authorize that tonight, the mayor you would be giving the mayor the authority to sign a resolution, which would make the process formal. Just to give you background, in 1991, the agenda structure was established by Resolution 91-1616, and it primarily talked about the public comment section. And then in 2023, there was a public comment section relocated in the agenda. Prior to that, it used to be at the end of the agenda structure. and now it's in the middle, and so that was approved. And in March 2025, I received direction from you to review the structure. And so what we're trying to or propose to do tonight is to separate, the current structure has two separate sections for the report. So we would be merging the council committee and reports with the recommendations. And the position of the public comments would remain the same. The benefits of the change, it would improve the flow, so the logical meeting progression. It would also reduce confusion. Sometimes we just get excited and we tend to report on the recommendations prior or vice versa, which, you know, it's understandable. It also enhanced the engagement so that the public doesn't have to wait to item 10 currently on the agenda. The public understands when to participate and what the city council direction will be to staff. And it just relates the items together, so it just keeps everything consolidated. The legal requirements, all statutory obligations would be addressed, and if the changes adopted today by you, it would be compliance to Brown Act. There's no fiscal impact, very minimal staff hours, and there's no budget impact either. And it does align with the council goals of value of organizational excellence and then public engagement as well, and just running it more efficiently. So that concludes the presentation. Today I just seek for your feedback, and then upon approval, like I mentioned at the beginning, the mayor would be signing the resolution, which is not attached in your packet, but it's ready for signature if you approve the change.
Okay, thank you. All right, any discussion, questions?
Sure.
Yes, John.
Seems like a slam dunk to me. Honestly, I mean,
Agreed.
Yeah, but this obviously wouldn't be going into effect until the next meeting, because I refrained from reporting on my committee reports because that was not coming up till the end of the meeting. So can I still report on that when it comes up at the end of the meeting?
It wouldn't be effective until the next meeting.
All right. Okay, all right, any other comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion. All right, so moved. Do I have a second? Second, all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Great, thank you. All right, our next item is 9C, consideration of multi-year investment in the Housing Trust Fund of Ventura County.
Thank you, Mayor. That's my item as well. The purpose of the discussion is seeking again your guidance on whether to contribute this year. The request was $50,000. You did receive a presentation from this nonprofit. I want to say it was a couple meetings ago, last meeting, I don't recall. So your decision today would be either to approve the full amount, reduce the amount, or take no action. And just to remind everyone, the Housing Trust Fund of Ventura County was established in 2011. They're a 501 nonprofit. They provide financial support to below market loans for affordable housing. And the population they're currently serving countywide are farm workers, veterans, homeless, seniors, and youth. To provide you with a snapshot, and this was provided as well during our last council meeting, I believe, when the presentation was provided, they have raised $45 million since inception. The total lend for housing projects is $41 million, and they have been able to create affordable housing units of 1,829. In the current pipeline, they have about $31 million, and that's for 2024 to 2025 projects. Fillmore did provide a previous contribution. In 2018, the city contributed $50,000. 1.26 million have gone back to Fillmore Housing. So the return on investment is leverage on those funds. And they did assist with the 77 affordable unit community that we have here. The partnership goal would be to support future affordable housing locally, also support the HTFVC's revolving loan fund, And if you approve today's contribution, that would be a 50,000, or that's what the ask is. You have the ability to reduce that amount if you choose to. The funding sources and fiscal impact, we do have some funds in the Redevelopment Agency Housing Fund. The current balance is $600,000. There wouldn't be any impact to the general fund. The implementation, when you give tonight authority to us, we would just move forward with such contribution if that's your direction. And this is not a budgeted item, so it was not included in the current fiscal year. Again, your options tonight are approve a $50,000 multi-year contribution or investment. If you decide to not approve those $50,000, you could give a partial investment, and that's up to your decision, or decline the contribution and prioritize homeless shelter for regional that we contribute to. This does align and it does address the City Council homelessness goal. It also advances housing across Ventura County, and it builds on a successful collaboration with this agency. I also want to mention that we do have Alex Russell here. He's a former Housing Trust Fund from Ventura County Board Chair, the current chair of the Housing Land Trust in Ventura County, and also the CEO of Homes and Hope, and he's here to answer any questions that I might not be able to answer. So that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, does anyone have any questions? Yes, John.
So my first question has to do with the, so to me, it's a little vague. So $50,000 multi-year. So multi-year can be 3 years, it can be 20 years. Do we have better definition on what multi-year means?
I'll probably pass that to Alex, but the last time we contributed was in 2018.
So that was a one-time contribution of 50,000. Okay, so the ask today is multi-year, and I guess I'm asking for a definition on what does that mean? So it's a 2-year commitment.
So 50,000 per year, so 100,000 total.
Could you go to the microphone? I'm sorry.
Good evening, council members. My name is Alexander Russell, as mentioned. The request was for 50,000 per year. It's not really a scientific request. When we started asking all the cities throughout the county for funding, for the smaller cities, we started asking for 50,000 a year. For the larger cities, 100,000 a year. The previous fund from Fillmore was 50,000, and so that's what we asked for again this time. And it's over a 2-year period.
Okay.
Okay, yes, Luis.
I have a question about the different people is services and homelessness was a part of that. Is there any kind of crossover between the funds that we receive to address homelessness and housing? If so, is the funds that we received to address homelessness, can that be used in a contribution?
Not currently how the application was submitted in the scope of work. This is not what we got approved from HCD.
And would it then, if something were to be developed, will it then fall within that scope of work?
So we currently have 2 applicants that we're working with, and they're partners as part of our encampment resolution grant. And so we have partnered with them to provide permanent housing. Once we have gone through the case management and the interim shelter housing, and those individuals hopefully are able to move into permanent housing, then we would be allocating 7 and 13 units with the 2 partners that are in process of developing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, John.
So my question kind of related to what Luis was asking about. So you said right now we have 600,000 that we could use part of that. So, okay, so what did we have in mind for that whole 600,000 that we would now be reducing to 550 and then 500,000 the next year?
So there has been discussion, or we have received asks from the developers who are currently those 2 affordable housing projects. So I've been working with Tiffany's office and establishing a loan program. I don't want to get into too much of the details, but that's technically something that I would come back to council And that would help these two developers to have more tie breaks when they're submitting their application. So that's technically where we would be utilizing the funds. We just started the discussions a couple weeks ago, and we're trying to put the how that process would work and how that would benefit not only the community, the affordable housing process, but also give tiebreakers so that when they're submitting their applications for the Supernova, then they would get additional points and hopefully funding would flow faster.
Okay, so just to kind of restate what I think I heard. So right now, the developers for the area we were discussing, this would be a way to help them fund, but not, it wouldn't be a grant. It would be a loan for them. So the fiscal impact would be that the amount that we could loan them would be reduced from 600,000 down to $500,000.
Correct.
Is that?
That's correct. That's
I understand.
correct.
Okay.
And we're talking about potentially doing it where, affordable housing projects have to be in place for 55 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so working a structure where there's an equal process and application so that we're not treating anyone differently. And then shortly after that, we could, if the project still stands after 55 years, we're talking about the potential of forgiving the loan.
All right, good questions. Any other questions here? Okay.
You may have just answered it in there somewhere, but one question I had is, so, well, two. Just to be clear, so we're talking about $50,000 each year, and at this point, that's for 2 years? Okay. So at the end of the 2 years, then I'm assuming that number is going to be renegotiated. I'm assuming probably higher. We're going to have to participate again. We're going to have to continue paying more. So we're talking $100,000 then.
If you have the answer to that question, feel free to come up to the mic.
So the request at this time is just for the 2 years at 50,000. In a future year, we may come back. Last time this was funded was 2018. I believe that's correct. Yeah. So it's not like it's an ongoing. This money actually is a revolving loan fund. So the money, the grant that you would provide actually gets reloaned to projects over and over again. So the Mountain View project that was mentioned, when I was at Many Mansions, we used that funding. People Self-Help Housing got $1 million for Fillmore Terrace. And I know Many Mansions is looking at Mountain View 2, potentially for more funding from the Housing Trust Fund. And I'm assuming those are probably the two projects that were being discussed. So these projects, maybe they don't get it on the perm side. They'll still be getting that money likely up front to get them to that point. The Supernova is very competitive. No guarantees that they'll get awarded or not. Hopefully they do. But if they don't, then that funding's in place while they go out for the other funding that's out there.
It just seems, looking at the 50, if we paid a one-time $50,000 contribution to HTFVC,
Right.
And in return, Fillmore received the $1,262,892,000 in new development.
And you've actually gotten 2.2 because we've actually loaned money to Fillmore Terrace already. So now it's actually 2.2 million that Fillmore's received already, and plus maybe more.
It seems to me that we're getting the better end of the deal.
Yeah, absolutely. You have something to add, Albert?
Well, I had a question, but they were already answered. My questions were, how will the trust fund directly impact the affordable housing opportunities in Fillmore? And what metrics will be used to measure the return on investment to our residents?
Yeah.
Great. Yes, John.
Yeah, so maybe I'm a little slow, but it seems to me that I would like to see a more clear return on investment comparison, just so that when I'm making the decision, I have a very, very clear understanding of the results. If we do A, here's our return on investment in terms of what gets invested back into the community, or if we do B, then we get this amount returned to the community. I don't know that I have a super clear picture of the exact numbers. I think I have a general understanding of what's happening with the dollars, but I'd feel more comfortable with having a more exact dollar figure, personally.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I think I think that's a difficult one to get to, and actually on both ends. The way I see it, there's the contribution of $50,000 over 2 years, so $100,000 is the ask from the Housing Trust Fund. Is that I don't say good faith effort, but basically it is, of all the different cities in the county contributing to this pool that then gets farmed out. And I think in the letter that Linda wrote is that we've just recently in the last few years have really seen the benefit of that come back to 2 affordable housing projects that one up and running, everyone loves, has been award winning. The next very soon to be, fingers crossed, as well as many mansions too. So yeah, so that money, again, it goes into that pool, it comes out. We were able to see that sort of that return on investment very strongly here. But I think that there's also worth there that maybe can't be specific number-wise, that's worthy of being a collaborating partner and a supporter of the Housing Trust Fund overall. And then on the other side of wanting to see the return from that loan potentially, and I know we can't get into too much detail, that's just, again, trying to really support those 2 housing developers to get where they need to get to continue to build in Fillmore. And again, it's like I said, it's a competitive process, and those 2 housing developers are asking for Fillmore. What can we do, Fillmore, to help us, cross that line? And it's a little difficult. Both of them are a little, what's the word? It's gray. It's gray in terms of exact numbers, but that benefit, I think, either way is there. And I actually really like the combination of contributing on one end to the overall goal of more affordable housing in Ventura County that I think we will continue to see come back to Fillmore, absolutely, and being very specific, and with the rest of the redevelopment fund, redevelopment agency funds, of helping these 2 developers right now. So those are my comments, and I wholeheartedly support an investment of 2 years into the Housing Trust Fund, so that they continue to build up their ability to loan to agencies like the 2 developers that we're working with.
So forgive me again for kind of thinking through this process, but when you were speaking, it kind of hit me that the 2 decisions are, one, we don't contribute, right? Mm-hmm. And we only go with the loan, right? The potential loan of $600,000, or option B is we make the contribution of $50,000 for 2 years in a row, and then we still go with $500,000 over here. So I guess let me refine my question a little bit. It would be more, and I don't know if you can really answer this question, Erica, but going from $600,000 to $500,000, how much of an impact that's going to have on it's hard to say, right?
It's very hard to say. The process is very competitive. We're just trying to come up with solutions where they can potentially leverage that to say, hey, the city's also supporting us, hence why we believe we could just have more tiebreakers. But the process is very competitive, and unfortunately, I can't tell you whether that will have an impact or not. We're just trying to come up with solutions on how we could use the funds and then somehow benefit both of the developers that are currently, looking at breaking ground.
Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that money can only be used for development, correct?
Correct. That's
okay.
what it is.
All right, so then I think that pretty well decides it for me then. I mean, given the 2 choices, it seems, now that I've thought about it, it seems pretty obvious. I'm fully supportive of going with the $50,000 for 2 years, but I see a finger.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. And looking at, this is astounding to me, looking at the letter from Linda of the Housing Trust Fund, and on the second page of the letter, the first paragraph, it states, in 2023, Ventura County was the #1 county in the U.S. with the least number of available affordable units based on a survey done by the National Realtors Association. I read that and I thought, that can't be right. I mean, I thought, does that mean the state? Was that a typo? No, the county, our county versus any other county in the entire country had the fewer available affordable units than any other county. I mean, to me, that makes this a no-brainer. I think that
Yeah.
we don't want that title. We don't want that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, if we have nothing more to discuss, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Make the contribution.
Okay, I have a first, I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, and thank you for being here, Alex. Okay, moving along, folks. Okay, agenda item 9D, consideration and discussion of the City of Fillmore 2025 legislative platform.
That's my item.
Okay.
It's been my show this night. I'm very excited about this item. So the purpose of this discussion is for you to review the 2025 draft legislative platform, determine if we need to create a ad hoc or standing committee for legislative review, or if not, then I could work with the current ad hoc committees depending on the category, and then confirm if you would like to participate at the League of Cities event in April. So why a legislative platform? It enables proactive response so that we could take a quick action on time-sensitive legislative affairs. It empowers the leadership so the mayor, the city manager, or the mayor pro tem can sign advocacy letters or letters of opposition. It also provides guiding framework, so it gives clear direction for council action on legislation. And it also strengthens partnerships, so we can continue to coordinate with the lobbyists and with our regional partners. Since December, I have been working very closely with our lobbyists, and I have also been participating on a regional county legislative affair committee. I have found that those have been really helpful to keep up with, what's coming down from Sacramento. We do share those weekly updates, and sometimes there's like 200 bills that are just released and you have to review. The expanded 2025 focus areas of the legislative draft platform that you were presented via the staff report, it covers the areas of general governance, so that would mean local control, labor and pensions, telecom and development, Brown Act compliance. The second section is local government finance, so fiscal responsibility and revenue protections. The third section is public safety, so it's crime prevention, emergency response, mental health coordination. The fourth would be transportation, and I think it's public works, infrastructure funding, alternative fuels, and solid waste management. Then we are moving to the resources and environment. So that talks about CEQA, water, energy, parks, utilities. Then we have the community development, which is the housing, land use, and code enforcement. Homelessness and mental health, which would be services, funding, and at-risk populations. Moving along would be the public library, which supports funding initiatives and opposes programs cuts. Arts and culture, which would support arts programming and preserve historic sites. Animal services would touch on spay-neuter programs and the owner accountability. And then military services to improve veteran services access. I'm recommending tonight that you approve or amend the comprehensive guideline that was provided to you, so that would be the legislative platform, to authorize either to have a standing alone committee that we can continue to review this platform. I see the platform as being a live document. As things come from Sacramento, we should be keeping up with updating it. The last time we actually had a legislative platform was in 2021. Prior to that, the city did not have a legislative platform, so we've gone from a few pages to a bit more comprehensive. The reason of that being is because a lot of times also we are asked to provide letters of support or opposition in like a 48 turnaround. So by you adopting this document, then it gives us the authority to be able to work with our lobbyists, produce those letters and send them in, and just make sure that Fillmore's point of view is being heard in Sacramento as well, and that, we're taking action. And although that we're a small town, that we can advocate for what we believe it's right for our town. Lastly, if you want to participate in this year's summit, it will be in Sacramento, April 23rd through 25th, and the continued engagement with the lobbyists and the regional group will continue. The fiscal impact for the direct platform cost, there is no direct impact. If you do decide to go to Sacramento this year, it would be about $1,000 plus a travel reimbursement of the per diem and your mileage. So I'm thinking about roughly $1,200 per person. And we do have some money in the budget this year, so it'll be your guidance. One of the other things I would like to also propose is, I know the trip for Sacramento this year is the turnaround is quickly, and since we're just adopting this, so perhaps you just exploring the idea of going through the motion of adopting this, then we can work together on preparing those council members who might want to go perhaps next year, and have a plan in place so that you're more prepared to go and advocate for, whatever at that time and point would be. Council action needed today is please provide me with your comments. I am happy to hear those. I did submit the draft platform to our lobbyists, and they said that it was one of the best platforms they had seen. And so they did have their 2 cents prior to bringing this forward to you. And just, tell me whether you want to form an ad hoc committee, or if you would like for me to work with every single ad hoc committee that has already been in place, and then confirm whether you would like to attend this year, or if you prefer to be prepared a little bit more and then just explore at the idea of attending the future year, and then we can make sure that we budget for that during the budget cycle. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Erika. Thank you for the staff report and for this draft legislative agenda. I knew we would get high marks. All right, do we have any questions, any comments? Yes, Gary.
Yeah, comments. This is fantastic. I love the direction we're taking. That's been something that's been a bone of contention of mine since I was first on council, my first term, is that Fillmore's overlooked as a small community, as most small communities are. And I think 75% of the issues that we are fighting and we want to fix in our community is directly related to legislation coming from Sacramento, especially with regard to housing and, just the mandates, the unfunded mandates that come down. And this is something that we truly, truly need to really focus on. And it's the best way, I think, to make a difference. So I am all over this and I'm really thrilled with this. And great report. They're very thorough. Love it.
Great. Thank you.
I agree with Councilmember Broggie. I think this is great. I'm in favor of the ad hoc committee and would be interested in serving on that ad hoc committee. As far as Sacramento, I think it's a little bit too fast. Maybe we use that money elsewhere where it's needed. But this is great. Thank you for all your hard work.
Okay. Just to clarify, Albert, you're in favor of forming a particular ad hoc committee around legislative platform, as opposed to using the ad hocs we have that might be issue focused, that are issue focused to talk legislation within those ad hocs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree.
And you agree too, Carrie?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good to know. All right. Any comments, questions?
Yeah, so I'm in agreement with the other 2 council members. I guess the only place I disagree is ad hoc committees are typically supposed to be only for a temporary issue or something that we can resolve and be done. I would say that we probably need a standing committee because I don't think the legislative stuff it's not something we're going to say, oh, we're done, okay, we can get up, right? It's going to be something that it's going to be ongoing. So
right.
I would like to agree with what you're saying, but to change it a little bit to make it a standing committee.
I agree.
I agree with that as well. And I also want to add that I think the idea of trying to do it this April is, because there's so much prep work that you have to do before you a lot of homework involved before you make a trip to Sacramento and start knocking on office doors.
Right, yes. Okay. All right, so just to reiterate the comments, thank you for the excellent legislative platform. Agree, I think you're right, John, standing committee does sound right, and I'm glad to see the robust, really strong enthusiasm from fellow council members to have that. And if we are, so I know we're reviewing the legislative platform right now. I don't know if anyone has any particular comments to it. I do have one, and I just wanted to mention it since it's here. I was trying to look back at the one that we adopted a few years ago, and the one now that is proposed, and I think it's reorganized really well and clearer. But there is one thing that again, for me, is missing that was on the previous one that's not on this new one, and that is the first thing under environment, and I just had it right here. Let me try and pull it back up again. And here I am. Okay, so on the previous one, the first thing listed under environmental issues on the legislative platform is support community choice aggregation and measures that further the goals of choice. They're 100%, 50%, or 25% renewable, clean energy, and affordable rates. And I just thought that that should be part of our current platform under the area of energy. People have told me and been just in contact with experts around energy, and they say that the single one thing that communities can do most to help with furthering renewable energy and lessening climate change, like the one thing that communities can do is consider community choice aggregation or support efforts that support community choice aggregation. So I just wanted to put that out there as a potential edit to add into our current platform.
I'm supportive of that.
Okay. Is anyone else supportive of making that change? Oh, okay. Mayor Pro Tem Mendez as well. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that was what we had. So I think, I'm sorry, let me just go back up to this top of the staff report. Okay, so the recommendation, all right, I'll entertain a recommendation on this item. I think the three different things are adoption of the platform, and then authorizing committee, and regarding the League of Cities Summit.
I'm ready to make the motion, but I want to read it.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Tiffany, can they form the standing committee right now, or do I have to come back with that?
Report about?
It says whether to authorize city council standing and/or ad hoc committee to review legislation to make recommendation to the city council.
Yeah, then I think they can do it now.
Okay, that way we don't have to come back with another staff report?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Go ahead.
I move that we adopt the 2025 legislative platform
With recommended change.
with the recommended changes, and omit the leaders summit this year. Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Oh, Tiffany, do you need something?
No, you could vote, but then I just want to make sure then there'll be a separate motion about the committee. If we're not including that, right, if we're not, and picking people, if we're not putting that in the original motion.
Which is number 2 on recommendations.
Do you want to amend your motion, Albert, to include the standing committee? Okay.
Yes, I'll amend my motion to include the standing committee.
Who? Nominees.
Oh, the nominees?
Oh, do we need to nominate?
Well,
Okay,
should I
I'm
say
sorry.
Myself and Councilmember Brody?
I would do it.
Okay, so do we need this can all be included, Tiffany, in one motion? The adoption of the what's recommended plus the two recommended?
If you're ready to do it all at once.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor for Councilmember Broggi and Mayor Pro Tem Mendez to be part of the newly formed standing legislative committee, along with adopting the platform with the said change and passing on the summit until next year. Do we have and Councilmember Brogy seconded. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And congratulations to new standing committee members. All right, okay, moving along on the agenda, we are now on item 9E, approval of a staging area license agreement with Toro Enterprises. Hi, Roxanne.
You guys have a lot of wonderful business tonight. Should I say I'm excited about this one too, like Erica's last one? This should be quick. We have hired Toro Enterprises, as you know, and we are engaged in doing street work. We've got stuff ripped up all over town. We're doing concrete work right now, moving into AC digouts, and then we'll be doing paving later this month. It'll be underway. And when they get into the paving and they have to mobilize a lot of equipment, including a binder plant for mixing the sticky stuff for the asphalt rubber aggregate membrane that they'll be putting down, and stockpiling materials for making the slurry seal that they put on top of the ARAM. They'll need a place to do all of this, and we have the old abandoned sewer plant site at the end of C Street, which is city property, that we have used as a yard for contractors in the past, including we even entered into agreement and let Caltrans have their contractor use that yard when they were doing work on the Highway 126 through town. So Toro, I've worked with the city attorney's office. Thank you, Tiffany, for helping me with this license agreement. And it generally is allows them to use the parcel of land to bring in and stage materials and equipment, do the work, and then restore it to how they found it. So everything should be out of there, and it ought to be back exactly how they found it before they leave. Those are the basic terms of it, and it expires June 30th, which we should be well done by the street work by then. So that concludes my reports. Any questions?
All right, thank you. All right, any other questions?
Oh, did I? Okay.
Okay, just a question, will the bike path then that goes behind Riverwalk probably be closed during this time period?
No, they're
Won't be open?
they're not gonna use the entire parcel.
Okay.
They'll only use like the main part of it right inside the gate, so it won't impact any of our right-of-way or bike path.
Okay, great. Okay, all right, seeing no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to authorize the city manager to execute a license agreement with Toro Enterprise, Inc. to allow the use of city property at the southerly terminus of C Street for staging of materials and rubber binder plant for construction of the city's pavement preservation project, spec number 23-03.
Okay, I have a motion, to have a second? Second. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right, next is item 9F, the bond exoneration tract for numbers 5520-2 and 5520-3.
Thank you. This is going to be me too, so I'll just stay right here. This will be the first of a few bond exoneration related items that I'll probably be bringing back to you over coming months. This is Heritage Valley Park specific plan area. Tract 5520 is basically the phase 2 area of Heritage Valley specific plan, which is east of Pole Creek, right? So that whole area of new homes east of Pole Creek. -2 and -3 are the gated communities that are located in the Bridges phase 2. This item is that those gated communities which have private streets and private landscaping and public utilities, we accepted the public utilities and exonerated those bonds a while ago. And then there's bonds still on them for a lot of the private improvements. And so this is to release the bonds that were for those private improvements that were built. They're in use. They've been accepted for the HOA for maintenance by the HOAs. And so those performance bonds are no longer needed. The only thing that we determined was not completed is they haven't put the monument wells in the private streets, and even though it's private improvements, survey monumentation is important, and so they'll be posting monument bonds, and then we'll just be exonerating the improvement bonds that we're securing, all those private improvements that are all installed and have been in use for a number of years now, actually. So this concludes my report. Any questions?
I'm assuming
Okay,
that the,
yes.
all the improvements have been inspected and deemed complete before we.
Yeah, that, years ago, like I say, it's been accepted by the HOA now and, has, like, to inspect it again, we'd be inspecting HOA stuff, so.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, entertain a motion.
Yes, I'm making a motion that the city council accept the public improvement bond for survey monumentation for track numbers 5520-2 and 5520-3, and authorize the exoneration of public improvement bond numbers PB 017-438-00091 and PB 017-438-00092 for streets and landscaping.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
I will second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next item is 9G, the filing of notice of completion for the Fillmore Boys and Girls Club building ceiling repair project. Good evening, Joe.
Good evening. I guess I grabbed the wrong, oh, I'm sorry, no, I didn't. Is this one? There we go. So we did entered into a number of repairs at the Boys and Girls Club. 3 active projects currently. This evening, we're going to be talking about the notice of completions of 2 of the work products done by Wyatt Trapp, Inc., the contractor. The one that we are in the middle of it's marching along as expected is the window replacement, the 4 very large windows inside the Boys and Girls Club. We're planning on coming back probably in May to do that notice of completion, but that is marching along. So this one right before you is regarding the ceiling project. Just as a quick recap, we entered in construction agreement January 28th. We issued a notice to proceed on February 10th, and the first working day was the next day, and the project was completed very rapidly on the 21st. This is we all saw the how it looked before this project. This is how it ended up. We installed a very resilient product up there with its application specific for gymnasiums. So it's called a gym guard. It's a woven fabric. I kicked the ball up there and couldn't damage it, so I'm sure that the kids won't be able to, but they may have a stronger leg than me. Total cost of the project was $24,579 and 19 cents. The original contract was for $21,000 and change, and when we changed course and did the gym guard rather than the other product, which was just replacing what was existing and then put the net below it, we changed course and put up the better product, left that ceiling, that look in place. So we're very happy the way it turned out, at least staff level. There's no additional fiscal impact, and with recommendations with you this evening, after we file the notice of completion, there's a 30-day lien period. Of course, this aligns with our infrastructure goals and supports community and recreational initiatives. So again, we're asking the City Council accept the services provided by Wyatt Trapp, Inc., authorize staff to file the notice of completion, and authorize the final payment after the lien period clearance. with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you. It looks great. Does anyone have any questions or any other comments?
I have one question. How high is that ceiling?
Oh, geez. I believe 30, 35 feet. Yeah, we had to bring in a special man lift that was light enough to be on that floor. We didn't want to bring in something like what would typically go that high and provide a larger work area. So, yeah.
From the photos, it looks great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd just like to also agree with that it looks great. And I think especially that you guys moved very quickly, and I think the contractor moved very quickly to get that fixed. So thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll entertain the motion.
I move that the city council accept services provided for the Fillmore Boys and Girls Club building project performed by Wyatt Trapp, Inc., and authorize staff to file the attached notice of completion and authorize the final payment of the contractors of owed retention and release on contract pending clearance of the 30-day lien period.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
All right, first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Great. On to our last business item, 9H, the filing of the notice of completion for the Fillmore Boys and Girls Club building door replacement project. Okay, Joe.
Okay. So it's the same contractor, Wyatt Trapp, Inc., did the door, this is termed the door replacement project, but it was really the door and the stair upgrade project. So again, as a matter of recap, on September 12th of 2024, the city manager issued a contract to Wyatt Trapp, Inc. to replace the 2 double doors at the Boys and Girls Club on the city front side, or I mean the street side of the building. There's a couple double doors around the sides of the building, but those weren't included. It's just the front 2. We worked with the contractor on incorporating the improvements in a set of design plans that was then reviewed and approved. And we issued the notice to proceed on February 10th alongside with the ceiling replacement project. That period of time, the Boys and Girls Club was shut down, and we capitalized on a holiday. So we lined everything up just perfectly, and the window project started at the same time. So the first working day was February 11th. And you'll notice the date of completion is TBD. We had a little bit of a hiccup, and there's a correction to the staff report that I'll get into. So this is what the project looked like before. You'll notice down towards the bottom of the doors, there's a lot of deterioration and rot. Those were, not very secure and in a couple of different ways. So the project aimed to replace the door frame and double doors. There was a lot of damage, water rot damage along the framing of the door. So it was a matter of time before we would have to do a massive repair. So we lucked out. We got these doors through that time period, and everything worked out. On the stairs, part of this project was to put a new coating on the stairs, make it slip resistant, and then we on the east side, which is on the right side of your screen, the staircase is leading up to it. If you'll notice on the right side of that, there's a ramp. You can't really see it, but there is a ramp that goes to the east and then comes back to the west into that double door set on the east side of the building. The stairs, there was a gap in the stairs, so in order to get ADA compliance, we had to bring out the staircase and then bring out the next level and the next level all the way down to the ground level. So this is the finished product. We have upgraded both sides of the door, both sides, the east and the west side, with the upgraded locks that gives the Boys and Girls Club key access, which I understand that sometimes they give to parents Actually, I don't know that for sure. I just lied, so let me retract that. I'm mistaken that. I think they give it to their staff. That's what the key is for, the pad. Yeah. So the area there was a gap. The ramp went up like this, and so the contractor filled that in with concrete, pushed out that stair step, the second step and the third step, all the way down to the base level. On the inside, you'll see we have push bars. This met all the the current safety codes and ADA requirements. The stairs included. The hiccup in the project was the door locking or closing mechanism. It's a very minor repair. There was a miscommunication between the inspection staff and the contractor on what actually needed to take place. I was trying to get them in when I found out about this issue, this miscommunication. I tried to get the contractor in this morning, but he was on vacation. So we are scheduled to meet that contractor and the building inspection staff out there next Tuesday. To finalize that project. It's a simple ratcheting down in the top. You can't see it in these pictures, but there's a little ratchet that you can tighten down. It will add a little bit of closing force to it. So then once that closing force is appropriate, the locking mechanism takes effect and it's secure at that point. So the contract total was just inside of the city manager's discretion of $40,000. So it came to the contract was written for $39,354.45, and the final cost is the same. So there's no additional fiscal impact, and pending the city council's concurrence with staff recommendation, we're going to be filing the notice of completion. There'll be a 30-day lien period, and then we'll be able to release the final payment on that. Again, it aligns with the city's infrastructure goals, and it supports the recreation and community initiatives. So the staff's recommendation to council is to accept the services provided by Wyatt Trapp, Inc., authorize staff to file the notice of completion once the door passes final inspection, and authorize final payment after the lien period clearance. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for your report. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, John.
Well, I just want to say, Joe, thank you so much for the report, because I was looking at that $39,000 cost for doors, and now that I understand the whole scope of the project, the number makes a lot more sense. So thank you for that.
Each door was extremely expensive. I don't have I want to say it was over 10 each door.
Yeah. Solid.
They have the fire rating and everything. It's a special door.
Right. Well, the improvements look excellent. They look really well done. Great. Okay.
Are you sure that he's going to come back and make that improvement, though?
He's not getting his retention payment until he does, until he makes that final little twist.
Final little twist. Okay. Good. All right. Well, with that, I'll entertain a motion. Again.
I move that we accept the services provided by for the Fillmore Boys and Girls Club building door replacement project performed by Wyatt Trapp, that we authorize staff to file the attached notice of completion and authorize the final payment to the contractor of owed retention and release on contract pending the clearance of the 30-day lien period, and per Joe's recommendation, the final adjustments.
Okay. All right. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second that motion.
Okay, first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we've made it through our business items. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff. Again, excellent reports, and thank you for all the different PowerPoint presentations. They really help to make things very clear about our projects that are happening. Okay, this is for Carrie. Item number 10, committee, commission, and board reports. Oh, and also Albert. For everybody.
You're going to be really disappointed. Just wanted to report that I did attend the Ventura County Transportation Commission meeting on Friday. We have moved back to our original meeting location. If anyone is interested in attending, it is open to the public. And we are meeting now in the newly refurbished Camarillo City Hall, which is gorgeous and has all the bells and whistles for all the projectors and video and whatever you need. Anyway, so it was a productive meeting. I won't go into a whole lot of detail, nothing really exciting, but I just wanted to bring it up primarily because I really would like to see more Fillmore constituents participate and attend these meetings, because we do address a lot of things that go on in Fillmore, especially with regard to the railroad, which VCTC oversees. So just my 2 cents on that. And
Carrie, can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
With all the new bells and whistles, do they allow remote participation? Do they have Zoom capabilities?
They have Zoom capability, but I don't know if VCTC is taking part in that. It would be a good idea. I mean, obviously the city council does,
Yeah.
but
Just may be hard for
Yeah.
folks to get out to Camarillo. Well, across the county
that's
too.
true. Yeah.
Yeah. Ojai and other
I'll
areas.
find out about that.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
John.
Carrie, so I'm cheating a little bit here because I'm taking information from the Rotary meeting where the executive of the VCTC came and talked to us. Can you update the council on the status of the bridge for?
Yeah, the bridge at this point we're talking about the railroad bridge that washed out 2 years ago, and then they started rebuilding it, VCTC did, and then we had a second storm the following January and set it back even further. At this point, it's expected to be completed and usable by the Sierra Northern in October. So we should see some more train action in October. But I do want to add that at this point, I don't know how much of that's going to be, the train activity will be what we are accustomed to in Fillmore, specifically the touristy type attractions. A separate company runs that portion. It's called Mendocino. And Mendocino has not participated in meetings recently, so I don't have an update from them as to when, like the tourist trains and the Thomas the Tank Engine or whatever is going to be here. Right now, they're focusing on just getting the railroads moving, and they're interested in the Sierra Northern's interested in freight primarily. So that's the update.
Thank you. All right, Albert.
I don't really have a committee report, but I did want to give thanks to our law enforcement and fire personnel for all you do to help protect our city and keep us safe, and also for our planning department, public works, you do an outstanding job, and our finance department, as well as all the city staff. Thank you guys for all you do. It's really appreciated.
Thank you, Albert.
I'm sorry. Can I have one more thing?
Of
to my
course,
report?
of course.
I just wanted a reminder that my porch talk, which is open to all community members, is tomorrow evening between 6 and 8 o'clock at my residence. And we've been very successful the last few that we've had, and getting constituents to show up, and we're having some interesting conversations. So I encourage anyone who's watching this or anyone in the audience to, please, come and join us 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Recommendations? Okay. All right. We will now move on to our city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to provide you and the community with an update regarding our pool. And I'm happy to report that this year we have about 24 applications in process for lifeguard certification, which is completely different from last year, so we're very happy about that. 7 to 8 are working on water safety certifications for lessons, and so we are geared up to open as we usually do on Memorial Weekend. We're going to be starting only with lap and recreation swim, and then effective June 9th, the programming will be expanded to include swim lessons and private party rentals as well. We are having a community meeting regarding the CAL FIRE maps. We had one last week. We thank you to those constituents who attended it. It was productive. We got really good feedback. And the next meeting is scheduled on April 16th at 5 p.m. at Rio Vista Park. Also, I want to remind the community that on April 18th from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., I will be hosting the first Coffee with the City Manager. I would like for everyone to come in and join me. I'm happy to hear feedback and get to know the community members as well. Earth Day is scheduled on Saturday, April 26th. Information has been posted on social media, and I requested staff to make sure that it's also on our homepage, so that should be up and running tomorrow. And lastly, we are happy to report that we have hired an assistant city manager. A press release went out this afternoon. We follow a highly competitive recruitment process, which involved 3 different panels, including 1 external. And we had very qualified individuals who applied, but after that thorough process, Manuel Minjares will be joining the city effective April 14th. So his first day will be Monday, and then his first council meeting will be on April 22nd, and we are very happy to have him join our executive team. And that concludes my updates.
All right, thank you. And that is wonderful news. I feel like Manny has been a part of the Fillmore community in many different aspects, and this is just one more. And he is such an asset, so it's great to bring him on board. Okay. All right. And with that, we do not have any closed session items. I'm looking over at Tiffany. Okay. So that means that we are adjourned until our next regularly scheduled meeting at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, April 22nd. Everybody have a wonderful evening. Thank you.